Hey guys. Okay, I just love wearing these glasses, sorry. Anyway, for today's Shakespeare talks, we have Romeo and Juliet. It's a classic, but anyway. So I'm gonna tell you about some basic stuff. By the way, obviously this video has a lot of spoilers in it, so just don't watch it and be like, oh my god, you just spoiled it. I mean, you probably already knew, but anyway. First of all, Romeo and Juliet is a typical Renaissance play, and okay, sorry, my mom is just trying to get rid of a dog that's been like okay, anyway, the second item on the list is that this play is actually not original in terms of story. In fact, many countries have such stories, but Shakespeare's language and art is obviously unique and different. So, for example, in Turkey, we have a similar play that I remembered. It's called Mahmut and Mahmut Yezda, yeah, by Murat Munga. What I'm trying to say is there's a lot of countries that have very similar stories to this one. So don't assume that Romeo and Juliet is just Shakespeare's invention, but he kind of did change the events and everything. Anyway, these points are so far what I'm reading from what I took notes of from the foreword of this book by Özdemir Mutku. Again, as always. So in this play, there are constant references to light, day, and night. It's basically because they are living in half-lights and they don't really have a future together. So in every single scene that they are together, it's not really full of light, even though they are each other's light, you know. Shakespeare he plays with light and everything in the context of Romeo and Juliet being together, like symbolizing their love or whatever. Because it is never finished, you know, maybe that's why. Also, I think everybody already knows this, but Juliet is 13 years old and Romeo is 17. But then again, at the time, the girls, they always got married when they were like children, basically. So that's not something surprising. Not that it's a right thing, obviously, but it's just how things used to be. Also, their love lasted from 3 to 4 days, so that's also funny. I mean, all those people died for what? But anyway, I mean, that's for you to decide. Their love is great, you know. I mean, their love is pretty great, to be fair. Also, before I move to my comments, when I thought about the light reference, it reminded me of John Donne's poem, The Sun Rising. But then again, the poem gets mad at the sun for not letting them be together more, you know, because it's waking up his precious lover and whatever. You can research that more on your own, I guess. I don't know. Or just ask me to do it and I'll make a video about it. Okay, now I'm gonna talk about my own comments and what I think was interesting in the play. First of all, time moves pretty fast. Let me show you an example of time moving pretty fast. So for example, second act, second scene, Romeo and Juliet are talking, and by the time they're talking, Juliet says something like, oh, you should probably go, it's almost the morning or whatever. But the thing is, like, they just started talking, so it's showing us that time is moving pretty fast, or maybe it's just to show that they spent a lot of time or something, but obviously normally time doesn't move so fast. Also, this is a very obvious thing about Shakespeare, but what the characters feel are relatable even to this day. For example, there was a part where, okay, in the second act or something, in the second act and in the fifth scene, there's a part where Juliet is talking about how
she let her maid go to tell Romeo about something about their love. I don't really remember. So
I think she was just supposed to say something like, oh, they're gonna get married or something, I don't know. She's just like so worried about her not coming faster, you know, she's just waiting for him. And that kind of is like very relatable because like anyone knows the feeling, that anxious feeling. For example, when you text your crush and like you send a risky text and you're just waiting, you know, you want to throw your phone away. That's the sort of feeling Juliet is feeling, and that's like very relatable even to this day. Also, another relatable thing is, although This is kind of something that I just didn't know, but apparently, like, I thought that only Turkey had the event where in special holidays you wear new clothes and stuff, but apparently it's not. I know, it's just my weird or whatever. Okay, something about women is that at some point of the book, the Lawrence guy, the Christian Lawrence guy, he is like, he talks about crying of Romeo, I think, as a womanly thing. Yeah. Romeo's pretty sad and he's crying, and this Lawrence guy is like, oh my god, you're being a woman or something. Like, obviously he doesn't say that, but he basically says that. And that was a little bit, obviously it's about the time as well, but you know, just context. Okay, something that I found really interesting, and I think like this is something that I found by myself. There's a part in which Romeo mentions a fly in the context of Juliet, and that reminded me of the poem again by John Donne, The Flea. Let me tell you, Romeo says, more honorable state mere courtship lives in Corion flies than Romeo. They may seize on the white wonder of due Juliet's hand. So basically, he is saying that he gets less than a fly, you know, of Juliet. And what John Donne said, I'm just going to give some parts of John Donne's poem. By the way, it's a metaphysical poem. Basically, this guy, like the writer of the poem, or like the guy that's talking in the poem, is saying to the girl that their blood was both sucked by the fly, so they might as well have their bloods mingled in another way. He's trying to persuade her, basically. It says, it sucked me first, and now it sucks thee, and in this flea our two bloods mingled be. It goes on, and it says, this flea is you and I, and this our marriage bed. You know, something like that. I think it just kind of reminded me of that. So I searched about when Shakespeare and John Donne lived, and I think it was like in similar times, but I think there's no evidence of either of them knowing each other, even though it seems pretty similar, you know, to me. But they could have just thought about the same thing by themselves. Anyway, at some point, Romeo is getting this poison for himself from the medicine guy. I don't know what it's called in English. And he gives the golds and says to the guy, oh, get the golds, you know, they are worse poison to human soul. And that kind of reminded me of Timon of Athens, which we already talked about in the previous video. So yeah. Also, another comment, I'm sure there's a lot of films and movies and everything that have references to Romeo and Juliet, but Ted and Robin and their balcony scene, I realized it's a reference to Romeo and Juliet. Anyway, so now my favorite quotes. I'm gonna tell you my favorite quotes and then we're gonna end the video. My favorite one is obviously, oh, teach me how I should forget to think. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then there's a part where it says, I defy you, stars. I think it's also in Titanic or something, but I don't know. I never watched Titanic. I don't know why. It's easy for someone to joke about scars if they have never been cut. But I don't remember where they say it. This came up in the internet, so I'm not really sure about where this quote is. And this is not necessarily like I think it's a very known quote, but it's something that I really like. So basically it's talking about old people, and the way that it's talking was like so, like not just, okay, it says that old people are mimicking the dead or something like that. And it says, but old folks, many fain as they were dead, unwieldy, slow, heavy, and pale as lead. I don't know if anyway, I just really liked that when I was reading. The dog was messing with my dog again. For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo.